Well, it's about time for an update on my turtle tank. For those of you who haven't seen my other videos, that's Muddy, by the way, one of 3 mud turtles that I have in the tank. I have an 8 foot long, 3 foot wide, 17-inch high, roughly 240 gallon tank for my 3 turtles. All 3 are 3-striped mud turtles, all wild caught. Muddy was rescued as a hatchling on the sidewalk about 10 years ago. We've had her since she was a little baby, and she's the matriarch of the tank. I have a mix of live and plastic plants, a lot of mopani wood, which the turtles like to forage in, scratch their shells in. Those are all plastic plants. There's a moss ball there on the lower left. Large piece of cypress that I pulled out of the Hillsborough River as a log to hide under or bask on top of. I have a ramp leading to the sandbox. There's Romeo way in the back there. For laying eggs and basking. The right side now is mostly plastic and live plants, a mixture for hiding in. The turtles love to go back in there when they don't want to see people. There you see more mopani wood. They love that mopani wood. Nice thing about it is that it sinks. It stays on the bottom. Although it leaches a lot of tannins, so you want to use a little carbon to try to absorb that until the tannins clear. There's a wet-dry filter. Each back corner has an overflow. I've got a protective box around each overflow. There's Muddy again. She's a sweetheart. Sand substrate. Now looking down here you can see my big sump filter. It's quite large. And looking underneath the lid here you'll see a ghost shrimp trap. The trouble with overflow filters is that you lose small fish and ghost shrimp all the time. I have a video on how I put that together called Stop Losing Ghost Shrimp in Wet-Dry Filters. You can view that if you want to learn a little bit more about how that works. But I lose ghost shrimp every single day, and I rescue them out of that trap, so it's great. There's Fern. She's an injured mud turtle. She was hit by a car and badly injured. There's some videos about Fern on YouTube if you want to see them. We've had her for about 6 years now. And there's Big Muddy. These are the only 2 girls in the tank, and we have 1 male named Romeo. It turned out to be a pretty good mix. I've had many other turtles in and out of the tank, have been rescued and then released, and these are the best combination that I've ever had. Fern, the small one on the left there, that sometimes she does get a little frisky and will snap at Muddy when they're feeding, but that's pretty normal behavior. They're foraging right now, looking for something to eat. When Fern was hit by the car, both her upper and lower jaws were fractured. Her skull was fractured and one eye was slightly dislodged. So she has some neurological issues. She can only open her mouth about halfway. So she's somewhat damaged. But she is a trooper and is doing really well. And unlike people in general and myself in particular, she doesn't do a lot of whining. She just gets on with her life and she's doing great. Here's Muddy poking around looking for something to eat. There's about 14 cory catfish in here and an unknown number of ghost shrimp. The ghost shrimp do quite well. They actually reproduce. Muddy will eat them sometimes. There's Fern. She wants to scratch. Both females, Fern and Muddy, love to be scratched. I'm using a little stick there with a rounded tip and giving her a little back rub. She loves it. Muddy also loves it. Romeo, not so much, but once in a great while he'll allow me to scratch him. And speaking of the devil, there's Romeo. He's another rescue. He has the rear of his shell has been chewed away, probably by a raccoon. You'll notice that periodically when he's there. You can see it there. Tail is very exposed. Found him right behind my home, and he's been in captivity now here for 6 years. What did I say Fern was? Fern is 4 years. Romeo is 6 years. I got those mixed up. We've had Romeo here for 6 years. And he's looking around for something to eat. Romeo only comes out for 2 reasons. To eat or to mate with the females. Otherwise he sleeps most of the time. So he's pretty standard male. He's looking around. And there's Fern again. She's munching, or will be munching, on a piece of fish. Catfish is their absolute favorite. They go crazy over catfish. And there's a ghost shrimp getting perilously close, trying to steal a little something for himself. For the most part, the ghost shrimp and the turtles are okay together, but if your turtles get a little hungry, they will eat the ghost shrimp. And there's Romeo. He's munching on a piece of catfish. Catfish is kind of chewy, and I think it's got a fair amount of fat in it, which is probably why it tastes so good. And Romeo's a pretty sloppy eater. There you can get a good view of the back of his shell. You can see how badly chewed away it is. When I put him in my tank right from my backyard, he was mating with Muddy within the hour, so I knew he was a happy camper. And I also knew how vulnerable he was to all the raccoons that we have out back, so I decided to just keep him. He's been a pretty good addition to the tank. Here comes a ghost shrimp there on the right, looking for something to eat as well. They're actually kind of fun to watch. Now we're up here on top of the cypress log, and you can see Romeo on the right and Fern on the left, snoozing and basking at the same time here together. Kind of sweet. The plants on the top there are all plastic plants. I used to have live plants up there, but they were hard to take care of. Here's a turkey bone, which I occasionally will toss in the tank. Mostly Fern goes after the turkey bone. Muddy a little bit, but not so much, and Romeo not at all. So you see Fern attacking it. This is also good exercise for her jaws, because her jaws don't open very wide. I'm hoping that this kind of treat will help her with that problem. There's Romeo getting a treat. I often will give Romeo something to eat because Muddy will steal food right out of his mouth, and so I often hand him food so he'll be certain to get something when the girls are also feeding. Fern's loving that moan. I try to duplicate for the turtles the wild as close as I can. When I take these animals out of captivity, or rather out of the wild, and put them in captivity, I feel obligated to give them something that resembles what it was like. Here you can see I'm handing Romeo some food, and if you look to the right, you can see Muddy coming over, wants to steal it. And then you can also see a ghost shrimp. Looks like Romeo is kind of full. He's not that hungry, and Muddy will move in a minute, and then we're back to Fern. Anyway, I create an environment that is as close to the wild as possible, so that these turtles don't even think they're in captivity other than seeing me. There comes Muddy. And take that piece of catfish. Romeo often gets distracted when he's feeding because he's not sure whether he wants to eat or chase the females, so he's kind of he doesn't concentrate very well. That's a piece of moss there from a moss ball. They eventually get torn apart. Muddy's a bit overweight. She's a huge turtle, biggest mud turtle I've ever seen. And there's Fern working on that last piece of turkey. Hope you enjoyed the video.